Jeremy White Show, hanging out in Montreal at the Bell Center, home of the Montreal Canadiens. Checking out the big Billy Idol show tonight alongside Platinum Blonde. We're hanging out stage right with Steve Stevens. Man, basically he's the guy, he's the face that runs the place on this side of the stage. He's making sure everything works. Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
I'm Frank Falbo, and I'm Steve's tech. I've been his tech for several years, and it's nothing but fun.
Talk a little bit about working with Steve. I mean, like, how fun is it to work with him, and just how creative is this man?
Yeah, so I come from like a super nerd tech background. If anybody's known what I've done in the past, it's all.
Well,
geek,
I mean,
it's
you
all
invented.
geekery.
Let's see more Duncan right here, buddy. I mean, like,
there's some pickups I've done and some pedals and things like that. But just full on geek. And so Steve is way into the gear, and he programs all of his own stuff, and he's just super into it. So I couldn't ask for a better person to hang with and and work with, because he just like. It's continuous improvement. He's constantly thinking like, well, what if we did this? What if we ran the signal like that? Let me come in and change the delay time on this thing or whatever. So it's super fun. From a guitar standpoint, he plays. You heard him talk. He doesn't play with low action. You can see.
Yeah, I can see it, and it's like
here.
You got to zoom in on that. That action is like that's pretty high up there.
Yeah, and it's always 10s or sometimes 10.5. Depending on the guitar or the scale length or something like that. So it's not the 9s pressed against the fingerboard. He doesn't play that way.
It's not the Eddie Van Halen setup.
No, and I don't mind setting up guitars with like dead flat, action. That's fine with me too. But it's more fun. Like I have a guy who comes to me sometimes. He goes, "Hey, you got to raise the treble strings on this guitar a little bit. I need more bite." That's literally the only request I get from him.
That's oddly specific, but you know what?
I don't think I've ever had him say, "Lower the action on this specific guitar." It's always like. It plays too easy for me.
Tonally, what does it do, though? I mean, like, is it going to change the character of the guitar?
Well, he likes to get some bite, so he just wants to get the bite under the strings when he bends. He just for him, it's a feel thing. But every time you strike a string, that first revolution or two, it's going to hit the tops of the frets.
Yeah.
So if your action is lower, then that means that the whole attack and decay of the note is sort of subject to the governing force of all those fret tops. So when you have higher action, obviously the pinnacle example would be somebody like Stevie Ray Vaughan, who played it with action so high that it was hardly even touching the frets, and you just had pure string. If you bring the strings really close to the fingerboard, doesn't mean it sounds bad. There's people who sound awesome on 8s. There's people who sound awesome on 9s and low action, high action. But it just depends on how you play. If that's how you attack the strings and that's the response you want to get, then that's how you're going to set the action.
Talk about the setup. So, I mean, like, when you're playing with action that high, I mean, is it messed up? Is it mixed with the intonation? I mean, like, what about like pickup to string relationship? Does you have to raise the pickups? Or?
Well, you always compensate for the pickup. Yeah, if you do change the action height, you change the pickup height. But what he has is, he plays very in tune. So a lot of players. Some will be a little bit more ham-fisted than others.
Right.
He squeezes the strings in tune. He plays the guitar very in tune.
Tell me about that.
The amount of bow that I have on, like with a slightly higher action.
Yeah.
As long as you set the intonation right, his guitars play really in tune all the way up the neck. All the different chords.
So are you tuning it like a little flat or sharp because he's going to be pressing it into tune? Because Tom Weber, Eddie Van Halen's old tech, told me about it. He's like, it's called tempered tuning.
His stuff was way out of whack. Like, I don't mean bad. I just mean like he would stretch really far.
Yeah.
Yes, I do a lot of tempered and sweetened tuning. Steve's changing guitars almost every song. Okay. So in a lot of cases, I'm giving him a guitar that's in tune for that song, like the key of that song.
Yeah.
I keep a tuner line, so I have the guitar tone in my ears, so I can tune to ear, and then I'm also listening for like how the strings relate to each other. So yeah, a lot of times for me, I'm handing him a guitar that's, like I said, it's sort of biased for the song he's about to play.
Right.
And that includes flattening the G maybe a little bit. Maybe you're biased a little high on the E. It just depends on the chord shapes you're making.
Right.
And one of the most brutal ones that we do on the acoustic, we do Eyes Without a Face. And that one starts with a major 7th chord. It goes to minor 7. It has every chord shape in there, and it's it's so difficult to get a guitar to be in tune for a shape that's like this, and then one that's like that.
Yeah, and especially if you get your action like that, and it's like,
So everything's cheated and biased a little bit to just find that perfect place. So the opening major seventh of Eyes sounds gloriously in
Yep,
tune,
yep.
and then the other chords also sound nice.
It's so funny. You talk to a lot of players, and they always say, I don't want to be fighting the gear. I just want to pull it and want to play it. But like, it's
Yeah.
it's like as if he wants to be like kind of like battling it a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of blues guys that want to fight the guitar. You give them something too easy to play, and they're like, I can't even emote on this.
Yeah.
It means it's like
Yeah.
So I'm gonna switch from piano first time to a Casio keyboard. Doesn't
Come
feel
on,
right.
that Toys R Us Yamaha. You're never gonna
Yeah.
go. You always remember your first one.
Right.
Let's put that one away,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we'll grab Let's grab the other main guitar that he's using right now.
Yeah, the red one he uses a lot.
Yep.
Then we've got the LGXT. That's in use a little bit more on this tour than in the past. This was the Flesh for Fantasy guitar because it has the piezo inside of the Floyd, and it has the synth output as well. You can see there's 3 jacks on that one.
Yeah.
And then it has the magnetic output. And so when he plays this for Flesh, he's using all 3 signals and managing them with the foot pedals and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Well, he was talking about like he's like triggering.
Yeah, he's got
stuff.
guitar synth on there. You'll hear
Yeah.
him come in with stabs, and things like that. But we do use this now for a couple of more tunes because those older tunes from Rebel Yell, some of them were like single coil-ish strats and stuff. This just happens to be one of the guitars that we have that has a tremolo and has some single coil options in the 2 and 4 position on it. So
Nice.
So he is using this a little bit more frequently than he has in the past.
Talk a little about the Seymour Duncans we got in this.
These are these I believe what came in it, and I don't really recall if it's like a custom 5 in a 59 or if the bridge was a JB. But it's what Godin would have had in this guitar
in the standard
when
like
they
production
released
run.
it. Yeah, and
Nice.
it works fine for that.
Yeah.
Obviously, you guys have probably seen him do his Nylon Solo, and he's done records, this way. This is a fun guitar.
Wow. Look at that top. The
yeah.
maple top.
Yeah, it's a maple top, and this one's great. And it's once again we're feeding synth as well as the piezo tone. But this is the one that he's been using for his Nylon Solo.
Nice.
This Godin. Its counterpart in steel string is this white one for now.
Oh wow.
And it is white, but it's actually glow-in-the-dark paint. So sometimes, depending on what they do with the lighting and stuff, you might get a fun time when it actually lights up on its own. But once again, it's just the piezo system, 6 individual piezos. You have the output for the acoustic as well as the synth. So he's able to control all that stuff
Everything.
via these faders and sometimes on the foot treadle by bringing the synth in
Right.
and out, up and
I
down.
see some expression pedals up there, and
Yeah, some of them are for different things, but there is one that's dedicated to the synth. The old synth
Right.
used to have it on the unit, and then he went to the new Boss, the GM800,
yeah.
and that one you need a separate expression pedal, so there's one sitting there for that.
Oh, okay.
And then this one he brings out for Eyes. This one's insane.
that's
Lights
amazing.
up, yeah, the bedazzled, right?
So are they Swarovski crystals?
Yeah, it's just
Wow.
I don't remember. I wish I could give the name of who did it, but someone painstakingly took all the time that it takes to do that
Unbelievable.
to the face.
Even
of
on the
a-
headstock,
of a Les
I mean,
Paul.
like
Yeah,
the
oh, yeah.
logo, just
Yep.
like.
Yep.
And they're not big. They're
Nope,
not big either. They're
tiny.
small.
Yep. Yeah. This was somebody really cared. We do Hot in the City for that. That's a single coily type of sound. So there's a Surtelli for that.
Nice.
Little relic job on that one.
I was gonna say, is it a relic or is it?
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah.
It's actually beat up.
Yeah, he did a little bit of the relicing himself.
Oh, nice.
And then I went back in and kind of aged it a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
But aside from that, you get to the white guitar. It's kind of a brother sister to this one, and it's they're similar. But then I drop D on that for Cage when they do Cage.
Yeah.
And then I raise it back up so that it becomes the backup to that. These Enkeis just have backups to stuff that's in here.
Yeah.
So the whole show is done just with these 8 guitars.
Wow, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a pretty straightforward setup. I mean, like, people look at
It
that
is.
pedal board or look at the rig, and it's like, it looks
Yeah,
complicated.
if you can visualize it, you're all right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's there is a lot going on, but if something goes wrong, if you can visualize the entire signal path, you go, okay, it's not this, it's not this, it's not that.
Yeah.
What about here? What about there? And you're pretty much troubleshooted the whole rig within 30 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, we'd figure out what went wrong.
Are you doing a lot of switching for him on the side of the stage?
Not too much. I just
you got you got your own pedal board
I
over
do.
here.
Yeah, I have a clone. You know, it's a remote hookup to the other RJM, and it's just a couple of solo hits, solo patches when he's not near his board.
Yeah.
And so it's not something
You're
I
not
do.
doing wah swells for him, right?
No,
Everything.
no.
Like a lot of
That's the
techs
thing.
these days.
Yeah, he does all of his own stuff. He does all his own
Which is
switching,
awesome.
all of his own programming. And so then it just becomes he and I kind of nerding out, you know, on how to set something, or
He still cares, man. Like I said, I was telling Billy Morrison, like, you know, a lot of bands, they just got the playback system making doing all their patch changes, everything's dialed in. It's like, it's so soulless.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
Steve's
this
up there.
is all live. We just started a little bit of time code. It's for lighting.
Yeah.
That's what we
Yeah,
do.
you got the show computer. There's a lot going
Just
on.
a little, so he's sending, not every song, but like he'll send time code over here. But like I said, it's so that the video plays on time.
Yeah.
It's not so that some track plays.
Yeah.
And I think there's a couple of, like, if you see the Idol show, what's funny, like I tell people, like, the track, it is like the hand claps noise that is in Eyes Without a Face.
Right.
That's on a track.
It's a bit of percussion.
Like, that's it. Like, there's none of the rest of the stuff is on track. And what's funny is I've seen rig rundowns and stuff too, where people are like, "Oh, it's nothing," and then I know the guy's tech, and I'm like, "Oh, it is," you know, like,
oh yeah,
because I know, but they all just say it, you know.
But everybody's so afraid of it. There's
They're
a
so
stigma
afraid
talking
of it.
about it.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of getting back. I mean, look, especially with the younger crowd these days, everybody's so proud. Oh, you got to check out my playback rig.
My playback rig. You're right. I can run the whole show, and it runs lights and runs this and everything. But no, these guys are really doing like a full-on show. They could do the show if someone forgot the laptop. The show would go off just fine. You know, it's one of those kinds of shows.
Yeah.
These guys can, you know, everything you hear, they're just rocking out and playing it.
And look, they're absolute legends. They've been doing it for decades. 42 years, Billy and Steve. I mean, you can't go wrong.
No.
So.
No, it's a fun time.
Well, it was so great. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us and showing us the guitars.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to have to play one of these next. Thanks a lot, man.
You got it.
An all-new episode of The Jeremy White Show.
Available wherever you stream.